What's up, champ? This is Ryan, the author of Play Like a Champion, Sleep Like a Baby, and this is a message to my younger self. So, earlier today, I saw an article that was talking about how graduates in 2025 are having trouble finding jobs, and it reminded me of the fact that guess what? This is something you need to really make peace with. Okay, it's that the world that you were born into no longer exists. You know, people who are over the age of about 55, they think that you can just waltz, Vince McMahon waltz down the ramp, into the WWE and, slap your hand on the table, pass someone your resume, give them a good eye contact and a nice strong handshake, and you'll walk out of there with a, dignified, remunerative employment that'll last you the rest of your life. And you work at a company for 40 years and you get the watch and you move on and into your blissful retirement. Well, that world doesn't exist anymore. The world that we were born into no longer exists. If you're over the age of about 20, basically about 20, the world you were born into no longer exists. And the sooner that you make peace with that, the better. The sooner that you are, disabused of that illusion. And in some ways, you could look at it and be very upset. I mean, there's plenty to be upset about. In other ways, you can look at it and be freed. You can be freed because you could be upset because you're like, well, there's nothing for me to follow. There's no easy path for me to make my way in the world. And, the conveniences and the comforts that were afforded to my parents and my grandparents' generation don't exist for me. And in many ways, that is true. Your dollar is not going to hold its value the same way that your parents and grandparents had that experience of saving their money and the dollar holding its value, and we're even in a position right now where it's not exactly clear that the dollar will continue to be the reserve currency, or at least it will definitely lose a lot of its hold as a reserve currency, because there are a lot of countries that don't actually benefit from the dollar being at the center of things. All that to say that in many ways, in terms of education, in terms of families, in terms of buying a house, in terms of work in particular, the world you were born into no longer exists. And people understand that it can also free you. It can be bad or it can free you, because it can basically say, yeah, well, I don't have to try to follow the old mold, because the old mold, the old script is cooked. You might as well burn it, set it on fire, and enjoy some of the warmth instead of just running around with the old script, in the cold. The old script about how life works and how society works. So, it's something that I think anyone who has come into the working world, or just the world in general, since roughly 9/11, even if you're not an American, things have changed so much across the planet in the last 20 or so years. The rate of change is unlike anything in history before. Okay, so 25 years ago was the year 2000. If you look at almost any other time in history, if you take 25 years, which is roughly one generation, right, there wasn't that much of a difference between life in one period or the other. If you look at the year, let's say 1700 versus 1675, right, there wasn't some dramatic change in lifestyles, in quality of life, in technology from those two periods, or even less so if you go back further, like if you go to the year 500 and the year 525, or 500 BC and 525 BC. It's almost indistinguishable. Those two times would have been almost exactly the same. How life worked, how society was organized, how people participated in the economy, technologies, and so on. Whereas now, 2000 to 2025, it is virtually unrecognizable, right? And so what we're seeing is that people are contending with this dizzying rate of change and having to figure out new ways to organize themselves, new ways to make money, new ways to interact with technology and with one another. And it's a truly unprecedented time, which is part of why I wrote the book. It is a survival guide for navigating these very unprecedented times that we live in, trying to understand how much the world has changed, in what ways, what things to look out for, what pitfalls to avoid, and how to actually thrive in this new and in this brave new world, this daring new environment. So that's about it for today, champ. Remember to play like a champion so you can sleep like a baby, and I'll see you in the next one.